28 Days Later is a movie I have covered many times before. From its way of changing the zombie genre to iconic moments to unsurvivable scenarios and its dumb way of being unleashed a second time. But each time I researched the 2002 Danny Boyle flick, I had to gloss over something I really wanted to cover. 28 Days Later is a rather grim and realistic look into how a pandemic of violent infection could turn out, especially with how virulent the virus is. It's a masterpiece in horror cinema, but from its development there was always debate on how it should end and even where it should go from its second act. 28 Days Later has numerous different endings, from the cinematic release of Jim surviving to live out a happy conclusion living on the countryside, waiting for rescue primarily so audiences didn't feel sad after watching a dystopian horror movie. There was also the ending where, as Danny Boyle puts it, Jim's story comes full circle, where after suffering fatal gunshot wounds from the tyrannical soldiers, dies in a comatose state in a hospital stretcher, starting his journey of the rage outbreak-ridden world in a hospital bed alone, and ending it in a hospital bed surrounded by those that loved him. This also leaves the fate of Selena and Hannah up to interpretation as they leave through the doorway to endings unknown. However, even that ending was given a bit of an alternative, aka hybrid ending from this final scene and the happy feel-good finale, wherein Selena and Hannah are the only ones living peacefully in the countryside, making messages on the hills for emergency aircraft to see. But instead of Jim being present, a true hero sits opposite of Selena. In his stead, do you know what we see? Selena must really like cock. And things play out like the rest of the happy ending, just with Jim omitted. Around the time of the film's release, these multiple endings would all be rather scattered and left up to which audience would be viewing it at the time in 2002. The original British distribution of the film had the typical Hollywood upbeat ending. However, once DVD releases of the film were distributed in the UK with the alternate endings included, many believed the darker ending of Jim's death was way more appropriate for the general theme of 28 Days Later. But apparently the happy ending is the one that is set in stone in script. It is the concrete ending. After test screenings in the United States, audiences wanted the darker ending to be the factual conclusion. So, upon release, some theaters showed the alternative ending as a "but what if" type scenario, basically saying, hey, we filmed this ending because people wanted something a bit grittier, but as to not risk our artistic integrity, we are going to keep the original endings and just show you what could have been. And with these endings all playing out, it's just a fun choose your favorite ending type of thing, much like 2007's I Am Legend. But with 28 weeks later, the ideas on what could have been are extremely drastic, as there are two other alternative endings and ways the story could have played out. And brother, they are nowhere near similar to the original three we just discussed. Endings can be vastly disappointing or deflate much of what can make a really solid story turn from amazing to...
What the hell was that?
What's an ending you could think of that killed an otherwise great story? And do not say Game of Thrones, because I'm tired of hearing that. It's just simply an easy answer to that question. A bad ending can be abrupt with no explanation, a series of random images trying to be profound, wrapping things up so quickly because the story demanded it, or having a giant Abraham Lincoln, because why the hell not, right? But if there's one form of ending everyone groans at, it's the idea of involving this.
That's what the point of the mask is.
No, it's not as bad as that, but the same naming convention. We're talking about the "it was all a dream" ending. Yes, Jim's entire escapades following the hospital being a convoluted fever dream after being hit by a bus while making deliveries. I guess Jim was just watching too many zombie movies the night before and just imagining himself plunged into a British zombie apocalypse, but with way more intricate and never discussed details of the infection that spread through blood and saliva. If this was going to be a dream at some point and Jim wakes up from it, he should see to penning a movie about it. Hell, maybe this was all a dream had by writer Alex Garland. But even he thought this reality was stranger than fiction. But having this whole series of events be relegated to the wild imaginations of Jim as he wakes up from his coma, it would be wild, but incredibly stupid. Probably waking up as he drove away from the military compound to probably see Selena as his attending nurse, the soldiers as security, and other people he saw in his dream being random staff, while his dead parents from earlier are just now idly sitting by him, happy to see him awaken. It would just all feel really tacky. I've seen that tons of times before. I am extremely glad this didn't pan out beyond a sheer thought during this movie's development. While the thought of the rage virus is a true nightmare, let's not force the plot of 28 Days Later to be a true nightmare in Jim's head. Now, the dream idea wasn't the only other avenue that 28 Days Later could have taken. While the "it was all a dream" ending was an idea never even put to paper, another had a fully fledged storyboard written out and even voice acted, with even a completely different third act. What Danny Boyle and Alex Garland described as the radical alternative ending leads into the idea of curing or subduing the rage virus, a concept that wouldn't be explored until its sequel 28 weeks later, but with a completely stupid and weird reason. I'll go over the events of this alternative take as I find it pretty interesting, and I think you would find it interesting too. Now, the radical ending would start off nowhere near the ending, and instead takes place the moment Frank becomes infected by the singular drop of blood from the crow. However, instead of Frank being shot by the soldiers looking overhead, Jim is able to knock Frank out instantly and hogtie him. To the behest of Selena, who only wishes to kill anyone infected by the virus, Hannah thanks him as her father thrashes on the ground, unable to move. Jim's reasoning being that the radio broadcast that they heard earlier stated that there was an answer to the rage virus, possibly a cure or something similar to that. So Jim, Selena, and Hannah all take nearby rifles, arm up, and continue driving past the checkpoint in the hopes that they could cure Frank. Eventually pulling up in front of a deserted hospital, they venture inwards to see the animal testing facility we had seen at the beginning of the film, with animal cages everywhere, abandoned. They are there. They are a part of the entire story. It's coming full circle. They decide to stay there for the night, with Jim feeding Frank a sleeping pill to keep him sedated. Before falling asleep, they hear the sound of whistling deeper in the facility. Jim peers through a slit in the door to see supplies scattered about, with a person lying down. After continued yelling, a man appears before them in the window, saying he will not open the door under any circumstances or for any reason, because he has plenty of food, water, and books to read to keep him alive and satisfied, not wanting to even know their names, as he believes they'll all die, and if he tries to let him in, will attempt to steal from him and kill him, but not before saying the answer to the infection that they are looking for is indeed within the facility, even if the soldiers that once protected it are long dead. Selena goes onto the roof to scout for infected, sniping infected to keep the facility safe. Jim attempts to guess the name of the man behind the door, trying to befriend him by telling him all about his life over a couple of hours. As Selena continues to shoot the same infected, Jim scours the hospital to see the very operating table from the beginning of the movie, where the chimpanzee was strapped down to watch violent media day in and day out. Later that night, they are all eating when Hannah starts to cry about the situation at hand. Jim brings Hannah to the man behind the door, saying her father was infected and he is still alive and within the facility. And if there is indeed a cure for the infection, why would you let a 14-year-old girl go without a father? So it was there that the man behind the door goes up and states the way of curing the infection. And this point elaborates exactly why this ending was never going to see the light of day or be shot in any way, why it was just relegated to just being a storyboard, because it was blatantly stupid. And both writer and director realized that as soon as they got to this point. You want to know the cure for the rage virus? It's actually very simple. The virus is only in the blood. So if you do a complete and total blood transfusion, taking out every single drop of blood from a person and replacing it with uninfected blood, then the infected host will pretty much be cured and be back to normal. Yeah, I don't have a degree in microbiology like Roanoke Gaming or anything, but that sounds like it would have been the biggest ass pull in zombie history if they had gone through with that. Thankfully, they did not go through with this ending and stated this on the DVD commentary on the alternative endings.
And that was the problem right there with this ending. We'd established that one drop in the eye will infect someone. Then how the flying fuck are we going to sell the idea that this blood transfusion idea is going to work? What do you do? Clean out every capillary? and vein with bleach before making the transfusion.
But the ending goes on, and Jim gets a blood sample of Frank as they are both strapped down and have their blood traded like they are trading Pokemon as a horde of infected begins to attack the compound because, as Alec Garland states, it's time for the movie to liven things up. Jim discovers he has the same blood type as Frank, and after some arguing, we see Selena, Hannah, and an uninfected Frank entering the room with the man behind the door, with Jim missing from the picture. To mirror the beginning of the movie, the first shot that we see, we spectate Jim strapped to the same table as the chimpanzee at the beginning, with the televisions turned back on, displaying the same violent imagery that started the rage virus in the primate in the first place. Jim coming full circle to be the symbol of humanity consumed by violence and having no fate but to watch the world that it had turned into. While the sheer idea of a complete blood transfusion curing a highly virulent virus is completely idiotic, at least the writers acknowledged this before releasing it and didn't even make it, and they even described how stupid it would be to even consider. But seeing an alternate reality of Jim sacrificing himself to save Hannah's father, and to have mirroring imagery of ape evolving into man to answer for his sins, to become the victim of the very thing it created, narratively it's kinda really cool. I can't help but say that, but can we say that imagery and symbolism would not be overridden in this case by the fact that the cure was literally just medieval bloodletting? Like a virus, if you just took out all the blood in the body, it would just eradicate it? No, I don't care how narratively cool it sounds, that ending would have just been so freaking stupid. But that about wraps up this brief look into the widely different ways 28 Days Later has ended and could have ended. What do you think? Which of these 5 endings do you think fits the themes and story of 28 Days Later the best? Which is the worst? Or how would you have ended the original 28 Days Later? Let me know in the comments. This was a quick video I put together as my mom just went through a quadruple coronary bypass, and she actually made it. She is A-OK. So, as a little celebration, I'm going to be going to PAX with Roanoke this weekend. I got family looking after her. I am very happy and thankful that things are working out the way they are. When I get back, I'm going to be looking into Parasite Maxim, the anime, for a Why You Wouldn't Survive, and the Dead Space Necromorphs, and if they're zombies or not, bringing in Roanoke to talk about that. Thanks for supporting me by simply watching, and a big shout out to the Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members who donate to help me make videos like this for incredible people like you. And those are actually their names on screen. Can you believe that? All you gotta do is donate just $1 and you can have your name permanently etched on the next video forever, right on here. I'm Zach S, aka Wow Such Gaming. Never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay wow. Oh, and one more thing. This video was all a dream.